Testing, testing. Right. Yeah, it's gonna come through here, so I don't know how to. We may need to move this closer to the person is speaking. So,
We're going to have our backs to the.
uh, well, maybe we'll just have to have somebody stand right here and then put this here. That's the best I can think of.
Yeah,
I have not planned out, but.
I'll tell you.
Sounds loud. All right, testing. Now, the other thing is, maybe we could put it right here on the table. That might be the best solution on this.
Yeah. Slide it right there in front of, to the side of Patty.
And we actually put the computer like right where you're sitting. We're having issues. Of course, I was involved, so I guess I am my own tech guru. Yep. Is anybody else trying to get in?
You're not on a level playing field.
No, it's, well, okay, yeah, that'll work. All right, got it. Okay.
Oh, no, it's okay, but we need to make it easier for you. There you go.
Debbie, are you reading? Well. I played the independent post, like we can't wait.
There it is.
Yeah, we're having issues. I'm ready too, but our technology is not.
How do I mute my mic?
Star six.
All right.
There's no *6.
Under Pat's, keypad.
Hey, I guess I'm muted.
Yeah.
If the mic is muted.
As cool as I am. Can you hear me all right? Good, good. All right, it's time for our church chat. And we're gonna start off this afternoon with a finance report from Miss Debbie. You can come up,
Can you-
Miss Debbie.
I turned it down because I was getting the feedback.
just so you know, I need. Report through the end of March. I just printed one per table, but if anybody wants a copy, I'm more than happy to give copies. We're in really good shape. Giving so far through the first quarter is about 4,000, almost 4,000. About $3,400 ahead of budget, which is good. Our expenses have been in line, and we're coming into summer. Summer is
Yeah.
We're ahead, and again, anybody have questions? And if you don't have, yeah, don't see me yet. I believe it's $17 an hour. I believe, I have to double check that one. What was the question? The question was does the nursery person that takes care of the children on Sunday morning get? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's $17 an hour. If I'm not. Any other questions? So if you, after you look at it, and if you want a copy, let me know. And just get, y'all have my email and so give me a call.
Thank you, Debbie. Next up, Renee. Yes, you go. Oh, Renee. Renee's gonna give us a trustees report for all the hard work they've been doing right now.
We have been working on a few things around here. We've got a new speaker put in upstairs in the back so that the musicians can hear themselves. I think, Debbie, did that make today better? Yeah. The electrician comes back in this week on Tuesday. I'll be working with him on finalizing a few light things. We'll be changing the lights in the little chapel. That's the last of the lights, I promise you guys. The last of the lights. We're working on getting some more cameras put up around here. We have some new signage put up around here. Inside and out, I worked with Wendy for signage for the little pantry to kind of help them understand that, you know, we like you to visit, but limit it to 20 minutes so that other people can come in and out. It's the same policy we have for the church on the grounds. I don't let people stay on the grounds. So if you see them sleeping on the front sidewalk, call me. Me and the dog will come by. The back Patriot room is like 98% done. I'm working on the event closet. We're putting shelves in back there, which means we'll be emptying the stuff out of the nursery, and then I'll be moving upstairs. Mark, what am I missing? Oh, we've got some people renting this fall, the second Monday of every month. It's the Loveland Photographical Society. They signed a contract with us to rent this space. And that's what we want to do with this whole building. So if you have friends that are looking for a place to rent, be it, you know, a moms and me club, alternatives to violence, AA, Boy Scout, Girl Scout, something like that, send them to see us. You can talk to them about renting the space. This church needs to be able to pay for itself the other 6 days of the week, because we only use it one, sometimes two.
Sometimes three.
Sometimes three. Depends on if Carol's living here. Anything else, Mark?
Can't think of anything.
We're still working on stuff, guys, trust me.
Tree planting, maybe.
Yeah, we're planting a tree.
One day already.
And we got we are working at it. Trust me, I'm here a lot. Thank you.
All right, thanks for Debbie and Mark. All right, next up is the SPR report, and Cody is obviously out today, so Carson, can you give us a report?
Yeah, just an update on what SPR is doing. First, the tag on bid for Renee's report. The security cameras we have were donated. So if people are wondering where those came from, security cameras we have now, we have 3 of them, they were donated by a benefactor. So, the cost we have in installing those has been minimal so far. So as for SPR, there is one big item that we need your help to spread the news about. Brian Walls, our choir director of 20 years, is retiring as of June 1st. His last performance will be Sunday, the 20th of May. So we have a special choir coming together for the occasion. We've reached out to some past members of the choir to come together, and they're going to sing 2 pieces on that day of Brian's choice. And then we will have a reception or some form of celebration for him after worship, more than likely down here. So just a big way to say thank you to Brian for his many years of ministry. So please spread the word, and I'll share more as I get it from Brian, because that's still kind of in the planning phase. All right, that is the SPR report. So we'll go ahead and get into the conversation I wanted to bring up today about the state of the United Methodist Church. And let me say, first of all, that there is nothing emergency, nothing urgent that is prompting us to talk about this today. We are talking about it today because the slow uncoupling, I guess you could call it, schism isn't really the right word anymore. The slow uncoupling of the United Methodist Church will soon be here in this area. We have churches in our regional conference that will be disaffiliated within the next 2 months. So you'll probably hear about it on the news, read about it in the newspaper, and we wanted to give you a chance to hear about it before that started happening and to be able to ask questions and to learn where we're at in the process or how we fit into it all. That's the conversation we'd like to have today. So no urgency, no anxiety, just good, clear information. Okay? All right, so you have the handout in front of you, but rather than go into a long diatribe about it, I'll just go ahead and ask, where do you all want to act? What questions do you have about the state of the denomination and where we're at in it? And yeah, let's open up the pool.
These churches that in our area that are leading the Methodist, are they going like on their own church? And how, if we wanted to do that, how would that affect our church?
So the question is, are the churches who are leaving going to another denomination, what is their destination? What is the possibility our church could ever have to do, or what would be available if our church ever had to do that? Is that a fair summary? So there are destinations for churches that are affiliated. As you see on your sheet there, last May, the traditional arm of the Methodist Church, about 10 to 12% of our churches, has started to break away. They have formed their own denomination called the Global Methodist. So a fair amount of the churches are aligning with the Global Methodist Church, but not all. The majority of them in our area are disaffiliated, and from what I understand, a substantial portion of other churches that are disaffiliated, just going independent. So they are becoming just their own independent small congregation. But that is from the 37 to 40 that I understand are disaffiliating from the Mountain Sky Conference. I think I've heard of 20 of them are just going to be in. So
We still keep like Methodist name?
they can call themselves Methodists, sure, but not United Methodists.
So I understand that, but I thought maybe they had to drop the Methodist and have something else.
No, they don't have to drop the Methodist name if they don't want.
Where would they get ministers from if they go away from the conference?
If they go away from the conference, these churches are disaffiliated. The question is, where did they get their ministers from? The Global Methodist Church really does not have a strong presence out in our area of the world. But once it gets established here, the idea is there will be some sort of similar to what the middle church is. The main difference will be it will be more power on the congregation. The congregation will get more power to choose their minister, but there will be some form of appointing system there. If you become an independent church, you are required to bring your own minister. Good question.
Now, we have to keep the same bishop, When does it come up to vote for a new bishop?
So the way we elect our bishops, that's why there's a kind of a flow chart. it's a series of circles. I'll post this online. We're recording this for our online folks. I'll send this out online for us, but that's kind of an org chart of the United Methodist Church. The United Methodist bishops are elected by the jurisdictional Congress. The way we elect delegates to that, this church sends one lay delegate, one clergy delegate to our regional gathering, the annual conference. Then at annual conference, we elect jurisdictional delegates. So there are an equal amount of lay clergy people from our region who go to this jurisdiction along with people from Oregon, Idaho, Desert Southwest Arizona, Cal Pacific. They gather and there are candidates that are brought up from each of the jurisdictions and they start the process of voting. So that is supposed to happen every 4 years. And so the next fiscal election should be in 2024. And it is widely expected that our Bishop, Karen Oliveto, will retire. So we will likely be getting a new fiscal leader as of 2024.
They have term limits.
They do have, I believe it's 12 years. They have term limits in they're technically bishops for life, that they have the title and the authority. But in terms of them overseeing a specific annual
It's hard
conference,
to hear,
it's 4 to 8 years, sometimes 12, but usually
kind of muffled. I don't know if you can hear it or not.
on 8 years. She's been here since 2016. So that will likely be happening in 2024, along with the next meeting of general. So that's when the Methodist Church is expected to finally sit down and hash out the issue around LGBT inclusion in the denomination and kind of iron out this problem that's been eating at us for the last 6 years, 7 years. Good question, thank you.
Patty has. I have a question. Okay. The Global Methodist Church would be part of the traditionalists.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would make United Methodist? Is that still gonna be the same?
The United Methodist Church, our core doctrines are not going to change. People have falsely claimed that we are going to go, that once the traditionalists leave, there's going to be a mass movement of this, our doctrine, and to change everything we believe in. I can almost guarantee that will not happen. Our beliefs will stay the same. It's just the people who go to general conference who are actually in the United Methodist Church will be dead. But many of them will have disability.
Okay, so it's still be under the United Methodist Church.
Yes.
So it'd be a section.
Yeah, we would still be under the United Methodist Church. We would still have the same, the same core doctrines in the book of discipline, the same social principles.
So it's-
Yeah, we would still be called United Methodist. We're not dropping that.
Have to vote on that before they would get proper.
Yes.
Is your-
So I want to bring up the vote, as part of paragraph 2553, that is the disaffiliation paragraph that's currently in the vote of discipline. As a part of disaffiliating, there needs to be a 2/3 congregational vote. And as I've listed there, you have to, if you decide you're going to disaffiliate and you have to vote, you enter into negotiations with the conference over our property because we are controlled by the trust law. Most denominations in the United States are. So we don't technically own our property outright. So we would go into negotiation over the property and we would have to have a payment sent to the conference in order for us to disaffiliate. From what I understand, the starting point of that conversation is 45% of your church vote. So just to get that information out.
So what would be one, just list one disadvantage or advantage to going the route that you're talking about?
I hope I'm not talking about any specific route. I'm just trying to share information. We don't have,
This information
yeah.
from Fountain Sky Conference
Mhm.
and the first UMC, if we were to go the other way,
Okay.
we couldn't have the same
So we'll play with hypotheticals. Again, we have no predestined path here. The leaders are just, we're sitting back and continuing to watch this develop, so we have not thought any sort of path forward on this, but to think about a hypothetical, if we went a certain direction on this. If we did disaffiliate, some of the things that would change, we would not be able to use the Cross and Flame, because that's a trademark. We would not be able to use our hymnals. Anything that mentions United Methodist, we would have to vacate. We would have to seek our own insurance. We are currently under an umbrella policy through the United Methodist Church, so that would change, and that we would essentially start to become just instead of an outpost of a bigger entity, we would become just a small little outpost on our own.
They answered it.
Okay, and by staying, we basically stay as we are.
Do we own this church and the land, or do we own the land and not the church? What, I don't understand.
The property of our church, all of it, I think there was a question about the parsonage, but the property that our church sits on, our building, our land and all that, that is controlled by the Mountain Sky Conference of the United Methodist Church in trust for the United Methodist Church. Again, that is not specific to us. The Episcopalians have that, the Lutherans have that, the Presbyterians have that. It was part of the system when the churches in America were really spreading across the plains in the 1800s and 1900s. It was a way that churches, denominations could make sure that these far-flung outposts adhered to doctrine. And we're using the reasons quietly. The fact that the denomination would own their building outright. So that was kind of a franchisee model, if you want to think of it that way. So long story short, no, we do not own our property here. I believe there was some question about the parsonage. I need to ask Wanda about that.
Yes. About- I'm still confused because then we have the property is owned by them. What about the church itself? You know, is that considered the property and the church together?
Yes,
So we don't own any of the church.
technically not. It's held in trust for the United Methodist Church. It was actually that way before that in the EUD tradition.
I thought the land had been donated by somebody, and then they built a church on it here. But we would have to go there.
What do you call those? It's a O&E. I did an O&E and it didn't have the Sky Conference owning the church.
But we don't go to the global methods. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Those church.
If we go, I apologize if I'm confusing people, but again, what we're talking about here with mediation, with payments, that only happens if we decide to disaffiliate and go to the local Methodist Church or go to them. By staying in the Methodist Church, which does not require a vote, it's the status quo. We are as we are now.
And it's not, it's a different denomination and different standards, but it's kind of the same thing, and it wouldn't necessarily be this way. My parents' church disaffiliated about 6 years ago from the Presbyterian Church, and now they're part of a denomination called Bethel. And in Boulder, they had to pay $3.5 million to the Presbyterian Church to buy all the hymnals, all the pews, all that everything. I mean, it's not like if that was. But I mean, you have to pay back the conference for everything we have. And so like my parents' church in Boulder paid $3.5 million to this.
Again, that was, we did not hear that, folks online. My wife brought up an example of my in-laws church, which was Presbyterian USA. They disaffiliated from the Presbyterian USA church, and that church had the trust law, so they had to pay $3.5 million for their building and all the property of the church. So, yeah, that's the trust law. That pretty much what we're
Yeah, it's not just United Methodist.
not just United Methodist.
Sarah, were they able to then stay in their building?
Yes,
Yeah, they did.
yeah, once
Now-
they made that payment, they were able to stay.
Okay, you
They're
know,
still-
could they have moved elsewhere and chosen not to make those payments?
Yes. If they did not want to, I got to worry about, I've done. The question was, is if they'd chosen not to enter mediation and to make the payments, could they have stayed as a church and moved elsewhere?
No, if they'd moved elsewhere, they wouldn't be liable for any of the payments or.
Exactly, if they moved elsewhere, yeah. They would not be liable.
Why did they do?
The exact same reason that the churches in the United Methodist Church are displaying now. This is, again, this is not just a problem that is local to our specific tradition. The Episcopalians, the Lutherans, the Presbyterians, they all split in one form or another over this question of LGBTQ inclusion.
It's a really good article in the Epic Times. And if you go on the internet and look under Epic Times, it'll tell you what's happening to like the Catholic Church and all the churches. It's a big article in the paper this time. It's really interesting to never read it. And it doesn't cost you anything to look it up on the Epic Times. Is the name of it.
And along with that, Sue raised a possible source of information, the Epic Times. There's plenty of sources of information out there from the Methodist world, so I sent out an email to 3 of the more well-known ones, but if you'd like some from like the different.
We can speak up with this.
Yeah, I can, if I can audio on, is the audio on?
It's gonna be hard for our church because we have a lot of older people. So, you know, that it's just gonna take more. We're trying to get people to come in, so. If we don't get anybody in, just think we were dwindling.
Well, I mean, we're doing very well. But, yeah, that's one of the issues, again, not just our church, but in kind of mainly Christianity in general, we're having decline in congregations across the United States, and meanwhile, instead of focusing on what we're good at, the sharing of the gospel, the loving of other people, we're busy bickering amongst ourselves, so. Yeah, while this bigger problem lingers above us, we're still squabbling about this other. That's unfortunate, sure.
Are we gonna take a vote in our church?
Not, the plan is not at this time. We've felt, the leaders of the church have felt no urgency to move towards something like that. We are still listening. We are still receptive to people who want to share where they think we should go. But at this time, you don't have to vote to remain United Methodist. So at this time, we do not have a vote or anything other than this conversation today. And again, we'll respond to you. If people start feeling led to go elsewhere, we'll start listening. But for now, we're just talking here.
By the way, Pastor Bryson has done a really great job of explaining everything. He's correct in what he said. And, you know, if this church wanted to disaffiliate, a couple of things. One is that other churches, whether they have disaffiliated or not, have had a study group that's met for a lot of times even up to a year to talk about everything and what that might mean for people. What it's meant for a lot of people, and I would think that this church would be one that it really would affect, is that people who, if this church decided to disaffiliate, that there would be a lot of people who would not have a church and would feel, you know, they would feel out and would need to find another church, although they could stay in the global church. But the other thing about making that decision is that when it's a vote, it's exactly, it's people who are currently members of the United Methodist Church. And here today, I am pretty clear that there were at least 2 and maybe more people here who are not members of this church and therefore would not have a vote.
Yeah, Kathy said a lot right there, so thank you. I'll break it down a little bit. One, again, yes, congregations who have this affiliated have done a lot of work around that, a lot of prayer. And if we felt to go that way, we would put in that same work. There would be study groups, there would be prayer sessions. We're not gonna go anywhere willy-nilly. So, and yes, there are voting procedures in place. There are stipulations and protocols around how a church disaffiliates, how that vote goes. So, yeah, if we ever got to that point, we would share those. And regrettably, what else Kathy said is also true. There are churches now that have been, I mean, I know one in our conference has basically been ripped in two. And so it really, there are no winners in this process. No,
So how do we take a vote?
we're
We're not.
well, we're not, we're not, no, this is, again, this is info only. We are not on the path to anything. This is just updating you on where the greater denomination above us is. There are no votes planned, no specific ways going forward. This is just an info section. And, the question is, are any of the churches in our immediate area disaffiliating? There are, we are currently part of the Peak District, which you see on your little diagram. I'll show you how that fits in the scheme of things. There are a number of our churches in this district that are disaffiliating. 3 in Colorado Springs are. Colorado Springs is our area as well. The closest one to us would be the Eaton Church and Brighton Church. So there are 5 of them in our district that are disaffiliated. The majority of the churches that are leaving are out on the eastern plains of Colorado. So out of the 40 churches, I think 13 or 14 of them are out there. The rest are scattered across Wyoming and Montana. Most of them are smaller congregations, probably less than 75 people. There's a couple that are 300 to 400 member churches, but the majority of them are small rural congregations. There will be a specific list published after annual conference. I can share that if you're interested.
One more question.
By all means.
What is the membership of this church?
We have about 100 and
Rolls.
yeah, so we're in that space between small and medium. So we're medium. We're medium. We're a good sized church. Sure. Any other questions? All right, again, let me say it.
Having an outreach program, sometimes to bring people back in, but they
The question is, it's off the schism topic a little bit, but it's, have we been reaching out to people who left during COVID? Yes. We know where a number of folks who were here before COVID are. Some have moved. Some have left the area. So it's, like, from what I understand, just to do an example, Chris and Jerry McKay have left the area from what I understand. And yeah, there are several others who have moved or gone to other churches. So we have a fairly good idea of where most people who were active or have gone. And this is the group that, I mean, our core group is still basically who we are.
Do you go visit our shut-ins that can't come to church?
Yes. Question is, do I visit shut-in? Yes. And I am happy to. If you give me an invite, that would be. I've been trying. Okay. So let me just say, because it's a beautiful day outside and I wanted to get us out there to experience it. Let me just say this is an anxious time still for the United Methodist Church, but there's a conclusion that's coming. This process for the regional area will end in June. churches that have asked to disaffiliate and gone through the mediation process will be up for a vote at the annual conference session, which is the third week of June. So after that, we wait until 2024 and the general conference session, which will kind of put the period on all this. They're expected to make LGBTQ issues a congregational matter, so a congregation can decide on their own merit how they believe about that. So there will be probably no standing doctrine from the United Methodist Church on that. And there will also likely be a permanent way for churches to disaffiliate that's approved at that general. So if something happens down the road and our church, any church feels like, okay, now's the time we look beyond the United Methodist Church, that door will still be there. It's expected to be there. We don't know what general conference will do until general conference meets. But let me just, let's end on a good note. Let us end by remembering that here at Trinity Church, we are running a budget surplus. That's what I heard. And so after the years we've had with floods and COVID, where we were worried about the future, I mean, we're now blessed with abundance. We need to learn how to sow that wisely now. We have about, including the people who are online with us, we averaging about 70 in worship. We were at 78 before the pandemic. So I know most of our worship, 15 to 20 of our worshipers are invisible every week, but they're there with us. So we are a rocks church right now. We are doing excellent ministry in this church world that's so unpredictable. We are kind of hitting a groove and ready to do more. So that would just be my charge for us. I know the people above us are still arguing. I know that people are leaving the church, but here in this little outpost of Methodism that is Trinity Church, we are doing wonderful things. And personally, I love our church for the way it is because we're kind of Methodism the way it's supposed to be. People who don't believe the same thing, we're still able to get around the same table and say, I love you, God loves you, let's serve the Lord. That's our church. We do that well. All right. So.
People have asked for a ministry brochure, who would contact, what's going on. They're upstairs, they look like this. They come over here. They're upstairs on the back table in the back of the sanctuary. If you want one. If you're interested in the joy group, it tells you who to talk to. If you're interested in the gospel fellowship, what do you talk?
I thank you for this.
Yeah,
very
so
much.
if you didn't hear that one online, folks, we do have a ministry brochure that's got all of the ministries we are doing and the contact people lined up. If you were looking for a place to connect in or another thing to take on like our church, grab one of them.
I do have a question though about this. Does anybody know who's in charge of prayer shawl ministry?
We'll
Anybody?
handle that. I'll answer that one now.
Okay.
No, we don't know.
Okay, so I don't have to talk to anybody about it.
So
We have visitor bags.
I'll end with this. If it's in perfectly with the sermon series, ask questions. If you didn't get information that you want here, ask questions. Let's have more conversation. I'll get you whatever you need. Ask questions. So, thank you, friends, for your time and for the wonderful feedback we've had. We'll send you out for prayer.
Great joy for some of us who travel that way. The First Street Bridge is complete.
Yeah.
All right, so before we pray, we'll just all wait to the camera. Don and one returns with us, so we'll do them. Thank you, Don and Juan. All right, let's have a prayer. Good point. Gracious God, it is never an easy world to serve in, but this church is doing well. It is always hard to make a difference, but our people are doing it thanks to your Spirit. God, continue to guide our eyes on the ways we should go, for the path now may not be the path we take in the future. We will trust the Lord that you will lead us. We will trust that your Spirit is among us and guiding us forward. Send us out now into the world to serve that Spirit. May we honor the love of Christ that all people know. May we show the world the wonderful Savior we serve. May all we do honor you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. The only thing. Well, it's still cooler and. Yeah, I would probably, get a pretty good, I'll have to keep it going. Go back and raise it, but then lay it back out. Not too hot, yes, and get it. But I want to do one more, it's not really anything more, but. Actually, I'll just put it down. That's right.